All right, let's get right into it. So the format for today is claim followed by fact check. And the claim represents stuff that I hear from executives, from clients, even from prospects. And so I'm going to take you guys through these claims and fact check them, and we'll go through them all. I think there's about 7 or 8 claims. All right, so the first claim is executives think AI search platforms drive way more traffic than they actually do. And when you fact check it, uh, Glenn Gabe actually put out a great report. And there's been even more reports that have come out since then. But he said AI search traffic is currently less than around 5%. I think he said it was closer to 1% actually of traffic to most sites. So Google is still dominant, and ignore Google search at your own peril. And I agree with that. In fact, I have checked this across a portfolio of like 20 different B2B SaaS websites. And this is commonly what you see. So year to date information is like organic search, Google and Bing, massive amount of traffic. And then AI chats are a very, very, very small amount of that traffic. We'll get into what the quality is because I think there's a lot of different types of things going on behind the scenes here that you got to factor in. But the point for this is that AI chats represent an extremely small amount of traffic compared to Google and Bing. And executives need to understand that. So that's the first one. Claim two, CMOs should be shifting their investments to AI search and that SEO is dead. First of all, I don't even know how you would do this. I don't know how you would say, yeah, we're only going to invest in AI search. We're not going to invest in, classic SEO because the overlap is quite strong. And so I don't even know how you would invest in one and not the other. But, you do hear this claim. And when you fact check it, the reality is that traditional SEO still drives the majority of traffic and lead generation. So you already saw the traffic, and we're going to talk about the leads in a moment. But just to show you what's happening, there's a lot of studies coming out that are basically showing that ChatGPT is expanding as a result of, Google search is expanding as a result of ChatGPT. And so what it basically means is that users don't fully trust everything that they're getting out of ChatGPT, and they need to go validate what LLMs are telling them through Google. So it's causing Google search to expand as a consequence of that. And SEMrush had some good data. It said ChatGPT is not replacing Google, it's expanding search overall. And the number of Google searches after using ChatGPT has expanded. This makes a lot of sense. But the point is that Google is king. Now, the conversion pattern that I'm observing for B2B SaaS is AI search for top of funnel discovery, exploration, narrowing down, and Google for the brand search, which will ultimately be getting the credit for the direct conversion. There's a lot of nuance to this, but it's part of the dark SEO funnel that's starting to emerge. I think Omniscient Digital put out a good study on how fragmented the search journey is becoming. We'll send that in the show notes in the follow-up, but there's some good research there as well. But anyway, how do you wean executives off of the teat of traffic and clicks that they've been so used to for years and years and years and years? And so a lot of this thought has been shared by a lot of people in the SEO community, but there's one guy named Sam Cunley who put out some good thoughts, and this is kind of a paraphrase of that, but I agree with it, and this is actually stuff that I'm preaching to my clients. So what we're putting less weight behind is CTR as a primary metric of success, click traffic directly from SEO, so those beautiful organic traffic charts that were always going up and to the right on LinkedIn where everybody clapped, that's gone. And then like last click to conversion attribution models, that's obviously breaking. And what we're starting to put more emphasis behind is overall visibility, citations, the amount of times that your brand is recommended in an AI answer, branded search volume, Homepage traffic increases. Self-reported attribution citing things like ChatGPT or online search. This is kind of what I mentioned in the beginning about understanding the narrative and how to put together a compelling story. Essentially, what's happening is we have to piece together this puzzle with a lot more data points and know how to talk about it intelligently as the whole story gets put together with all these different pieces. All right, claim 3, traffic from ChatGPT converts better. Put that in quotes, better than Google. What does better actually mean? Well, to fact check, it's all segment specific, and nobody really knows if ChatGPT converts better in terms of customer acquisition than Google. But from what I've seen in B2B SaaS, Google is very likely the winner here. There's some caveat, of course. So when you just look at website conversion rates, you are going to see in pretty much all cases that traffic coming from AI platforms converts better. Yes, it converts better. If you think about why that is, it makes sense. There's, first of all, a lot less traffic. The traffic that's coming from AI chats is meant to meet a very, very specific need. So AI platforms are very, very good at fulfilling that very specific search need. After all the conversational nature of that chat has completed, the ultimate destination is very likely a place where that user really wants to go. And you've also probably seen reports of traffic from ChatGPT resulting in more engaged website users. So they stay on the website longer, they poke around more, they visit more pages. So it makes sense. But does this actually drive better customer acquisition down the funnel? Let's see. I took just one client as an example to share here, but from what I've seen across many clients is this to be true, where AI leads convert better on the website, but they tend to be driving much lower B2B deal values compared to Google. So for this particular client, in the trailing 12-month period, this is a B2B SaaS mid-market company. In their best month, closed 345K ARR from organic search. And that same best month for AI search, they closed 33K ARR. When you look at the difference in total revenue, it's staggering. For that 12-month trailing period, a total of 1.2 million was closed from Google and Bing. Only a total of 85K was closed by AI search platforms. So for this particular B2B client, Google and Bing delivered significantly higher deal values compared to the AI leads. All right, there's a lot of discussion that we could probably go into on that. You know, some of it could just be the dark funnel. Some of it could be that other channels are contributing to all the goodness that's happening, and Google is just there to collect the ready to buy leads, so they're getting, you know, attribution credit for things that are happening on other channels. But it might also be that enterprise level buyers need to rely more on Google to, you know, fact check the information they're getting from ChatGPT, or that they're unlikely to go through a big purchasing decision through ChatGPT, right? There could be all these theories behind why, and we'll talk about it at the end when we have Q&A. So traffic equals revenue, claim 4. This is a massive claim. In fact, this is the story that almost every CFO, CMO, CEO pushed back on me with at the beginning when all this AI overview stuff was exploding. Said historically, there was a tight correlation between keyword ranking, so that's rank position, to the amount of clicks, so that's CTR, which leads to conversions on the website. So they viewed everything very linearly. And now all that's being broken because of the new era that we're in. And so when you fact check them on that, and you look in my case, in the B2B SaaS space, the overwhelming majority of SEO traffic losses were top of funnel and pages that were not impacting revenue, at least not directly. And so Rand Fishkin talked about this, where traffic is down, revenue is up. And I put this theory to the test, even with a bunch of my clients. So here's one example. This is a B2B SaaS site. They sell engineering management software. This is a year worth of data. So 1 year compared to 1 year ago. Demo requests from organic up over 100%. Stage 1 pipeline up 93%. Stage 2 pipeline up 50%. However, organic traffic down 2% or flat. And by the way, we had to work really hard just to stay flat. If we didn't work hard to stay flat, this would have been down 30% easily. But more qualified conversion rate, demo to qualified conversions up 86%. So my theory is checking out that because top of funnel is going down, we're getting more qualified visitors to the site. So the clicks that we're getting, even though less of them, they're higher value clicks. Our top 10 ranking positions were stable. In fact, they were up by 30%. So we're increasing the amount of rankings we're getting, yet we're getting less clicks. And then LLM sessions up 500%. So this is the storyline that you've got to be able to communicate to executives. You've got to be able to isolate organic channel performance and put that against traffic volume. And when you show that there's no correlation there, then obviously the AI overview story checks out. Look at HubSpot. This is all top of funnel garbage. So they lost, millions of visitors from 2024 to 2025. Obviously garbage content, garbage topics, but it is what it is. And yet their revenue is up 760 million. And so this traffic flat or traffic down, revenue up story, I think, is going to be one that really sticks as we continue to progress into this AI madness. You just got to know how to get the numbers and tell the right story. So piggybacking off that, I hear this a lot. Organic traffic is going down, so SEO must not be working. When you fact check it, it's the AI overview story. The CTR dropping by 35% when you are ranking highly and an AI overview is present, that's going to destroy your click-through rate. So when you couple the click-through rate decline from AIOs, plus you couple that with the top of funnel story, I think it's very compelling. And you can make this case to your boss or to your clients that, the majority of losses that we're seeing are not things to be too concerned about. And so what we should actually be doing is cutting our losses, right? AI overviews are not slowing down. You can see the growth, it just continues. This was research from Pew. They found that those little AI summary tiles or the AI summaries where there's a little link, there's only 1% of people clicking. So you've got the data points, you just got to know how to construct the story again. And then here you go. 90% of the AI overviews are triggered by informational intent. And I think Ahrefs had a study that showed it was 99%. So again, you're going to notice this theme of top of funnel informational traffic is under siege. What should we be doing instead is really shifting to BOFU, shifting to maximizing SEO ROI. I'm going to be talking more about that in a moment, but this is the pattern that you're seeing, repeated over and over again in these slides. Right. And here you go, right? Like I actually ranked the client for Zoom info reviews right below Reddit, also right in the little tile there. This is a massive page for my client, and it's going down in traffic. When we first got it up there, it got a lot of traffic. Now, even where it ranks today, it's down because of the Reddit and down because of the AI overviews. But if you don't show the story behind what's happening, they're just going to see, oh, traffic's going down, this might not be working. Well, you're still getting a lot of value from SEO. You're just not getting as much traffic as you used to get. All right. Claim 6, our CEO searched for thing we do on ChatGPT and our brand didn't show up. Fact check. AI search is probabilistic, not deterministic. So if a brand is not associated with a capability, that's a broader marketing issue. It's not an AI SEO issue. I'm going to go through what this exactly means with examples. If you compare what it takes to get an LLM mention versus what it takes to get a citation in an LLM, it's very different stuff, right? So let's go through it. To get the mention, you just need to be sourced in the training data. How does that work? The content gets baked into the model during training. The mechanism is popularity. So think, brand mentions are the new backlinks. That's how that works. So you maximize your brand mentions and something that I'm going to talk about called co-mentions or co-occurrences. And then that becomes the model's learned knowledge. But what the problem with this is, if you're a B2B SaaS company that's pivoting, and for years and years and years, the training data associated your brand with something that you now call legacy, it's going to be hard and it's going to take a long time to retrain that LLM data for what your brand is associated with, right? And then the citation, that could be actually influenced very quickly, because all you need to do there is rank in Google or Bing. So if you rank quickly in Google or Bing, whether through it's your own site or a parasite method, you're going to be able to get citations relatively fast. So it's a totally different way of getting visibility. One way is through the training data, the other way is just ranking, where you can use parasite strategies to infiltrate your way to the top fast. But that's the difference. And this is also why, if a CEO searches for your brand and one capability on ChatGPT and it doesn't show up, this is likely the reason why. And quick plug for Clearscope here. I'm going to show you one thing that I did, and you guys can go and do this if you want. But you can take any brand, put their brand name into the Clearscope report, generate all the focus terms, and sort it by entities. You can then pop all this data into your AI tool of choice, whether it's Gemini, ChatGPT, or Claude, and you can have it do analysis on your brand versus another brand and whatever entity salience you want it to extract. And so this is the output. In this case, I am showing how 6sense has a stronger brand AI alignment than Demandbase. And so it was able to extract 6 explicit AI entities. So AI-powered, AI-driven, artificial intelligence, predictive analytics, predictive modeling, revenue AI, and compare all that against where Demandbase has weak brand alignment with AI entities, right? So if a CEO comes to you and says, hey, our brand needs to be more associated with AI or whatever, you would go through this exercise and show where the gaps are. And then based on this, you'll be able to have a lot of recommendations on what needs to be done. And so, yeah, you can use Clearscope to do this. It only takes about 10 minutes. It's a very useful exercise. All right, so claim 7, AI search only impacts SEO. Fact check, this is also causing issues with Google Ads. There was a good report on PPC Hero that had Google Ads impressions are dropping 15%, while ad spend is rising 4% year over year. This was also published on Search Engine Roundtable a few months ago by Barry Schwartz. It's a good study. Here's Glenn Gabe talking about it. He's basically saying there's a lower supply, there's a lower inventory of clicks available. So it's not a demand issue. It's a lower inventory of clicks. All right. Claim 8, we need to become the authority in our space by exhaustively covering a topic, right? I'm sure you guys have heard this. We need topical authority. We need to go deep on a subject. If we don't cover every possible keyword in this category, we're not going to be the authority. We need to be the thought leaders. We need to, build out these clusters to be the authority. It's partly true. Yes, you do need that. But you also need the external recognition. You need the third party corroboration. So your brand only gets associated with a thing if you have enough of that external validation. IPO put out some good info on this, talking about the authority and corroboration factor. So he was saying that if you have independent, credible sources agree on a specific thing about your brand, it's more likely that LLMs are going to arrive at a consensus about that claim. Now, there's also something called co-citation or co-mentions. Well, co-citations are actually mentions by third-party sites with or without backlinks. So in this case, it's showing that website A and website B do not mention one another, but because both are mentioned by website C, then Google will identify the relationship between them. This kind of goes into this concept of co-occurrence. So if you look at all like the pillars of SEO in a classic sense, you have rankings, you have backlinks, you have keywords, but you also have co-citations and co-occurrence, which for LLMs now becomes a lot more important. So if you remember what I talked about when the CEO was saying, "Hey, how come our brand is not showing up when people are, comparing AI capabilities or features?" Well, it's likely because your brand hasn't done the work to promote those things, or you may not have enough third parties or analysts or even customer reviews mentioning those things alongside your brand. So this is kind of going back to that other comparison that we looked at, LLM mention versus LLM citation. You basically need to get that popularity and relevance, the brand mentions or the new backlinks, mentions and relevant content. Those are the things that are important when it comes to making that happen. All right, so you basically need to optimize for entity co-occurrence. That's the takeaway. So if your brand is mentioned across multiple trusted sources in relation to a specific entity, then the entity embedding becomes stronger and more tightly connected. So Clearscope, for example, if Clearscope wants to be mentioned alongside AI SEO tools, AI visibility platforms, and ChatGPT visibility tracker, that's what it needs to do to become more associated with those entities. It needs third-party recommendations and citations, and probably Bernard needs to do guest posts and all that sorts of stuff for Clearscope to grow its association with those topics, as opposed to what it's been known for, forever, which is a content optimization assistant, right? So changing the perception of your brand requires third-party work. And we used to call this SERP domination strategies. I mean, now it's called, I don't know, maybe parasite SEO or whatever terms they're calling it now, offsite SEO. We used to just call it SERP domination. So like, you would search, business phone service and find all the sites ranking in the top 10 and all the different platforms showing up in the top 10 and find a way to occupy some real estate there in the SERP, right? So whether it's LinkedIn, Reddit, review sites, YouTube, whatever it is, I used to just call this SERP domination. So this has been around for a while. It's not an old concept, just has a new name now, it seems. So the other part of this is that you could pay your way to get to the top, and you can pay your way to get recommended in ChatGPT. So a lot of times, for these bottom of funnel, high volume commercial intent queries, it's affiliate sites getting recommended or getting the citation, right? So the recommendations are coming from the affiliate sites, which are pay to play. So in this case, I think the example was, what are the best employee monitoring and productivity tracking tools for 2025? And it recommended my client because they're paying to be at the top of business.com's affiliate listing, right? So this actually has no real marketing work involved whatsoever. It's just literally pay to play, right? So I'm sure business.com wouldn't allow a no-name brand onto their list, even if they were paying. But still, you get the point that this can be, to an extent, influenced rather quickly, if you have the financial means to make it happen, or you just know how to reverse engineer this stuff, find out what sites are getting citations and where the mentions are coming from, and then just go get on those lists, right? So that's a technique that for better or worse, it's effective. And now sometimes you see what's called AI slop. This site that nobody's ever heard of is getting recommended here, and the information is coming off of this no-name AI slop site. But the reason that's happening is because this is a long tail query that no one is really producing content on. So because this shitty site is the only site that's really making this topic, at least in for right now, this was 2025. I'm sure maybe new sites have come out with new topics since then. But at the time that I scraped this, this was like the only ranking site that had an exact match page. And so sometimes AI slop works because that's all there is. So you can see I went into this site just to check it out. It's all very high AI content level. So it's basically slop. The last thing I'll say about this is there's a lot of panic. I've been getting all sorts of wild ideas thrown at me, like how can we game Reddit? Can we get an agency to start, responding on threads on our behalf for our brand to boost our, Reddit citations? Or, I've even heard lately Wikipedia. We need a Wikipedia page because LLMs are sourcing Wikipedia answers like crazy. And so now we need to, figure out how to get a Wikipedia page created for our brand. This is all happening because of these misleading charts. So you're seeing these charts where, it's showing Wikipedia driving 70% of like ChatGPT answers or something like that. And it causes a CMO to now frantically go and try and get a Wikipedia page created. It's just totally the wrong way to think about it. Those studies that come out are very misleading. And I'm not a fan of trying to game any of this stuff, so I wouldn't recommend it. I wrote about this on my Substack. I'll link to that later if you guys are interested in checking it out. All right, so for the end here, the takeaways are keep investing in SEO. Don't abandon it for AI search. I don't know how you would even do that, but you don't want to frame this as a SEO versus GEO or versus AI SEO thing. It's all it's all additive, it's all overlapping, right? It's just AI is just another smaller channel for right now, and it's not one or the other. All right, so focus on revenue driving traffic, not just the volume. So you want to be able to show pipeline metrics, qualified deals going up from the organic channel. You want to pay attention to the money keywords and the money pages, the brand stuff that's going to drive conversions, right? And you should expect top of funnel to erode. And so the lesson on this is to just focus on the revenue driving traffic and cut your losses on the irrelevant tofu. This was a great graph that Bernard put together a while back. I still agree with it. It's when he was talking about ranch SEO, but he was saying like, don't do what is SEO pillar pages anymore. Go niche down to as long tail as you can get, and try to inject information gain on top of consensus ideas. So instead of the 10 best SEO tools, ideally you should be trying them, showing what happened behind the scenes, right? Nobody really does that. That's why with HubSpot's, with G2's new pages that they've been putting out, like, we tested the top 10 social media apps. Here's what happened. Like, we know you didn't do that. It's just a headline gimmick to do fake EEAT. But Bernard's point still stands here, and I think I still agree with this, and I think he makes a lot of good points, and he was early in calling this out as well. Takeaway 3 is to focus on tracking the AI prompts that actually recommend tools and solutions, right? So you don't want to be tracking prompts that just spit out answers from training data and don't recommend anything and don't cite anything, right? So something basic like, what is a go-to market strategy? That's not something worth tracking because it's just going to spit out the answer. It's not going to recommend a brand, and you're just going to be cluttering up your data and reporting and just wasting time with stuff like that. So you want to do stuff that's going to be like, what are the best ABM platforms with AI go-to-market capabilities, right? Stuff like that. Those sorts of things that are going to recommend a brand or an outcome or a solution. I think that's what counts. Right? So stuff like this. What are the best ABM solutions? Even your classic bottom of funnel prompts are still good. You want to be able to show this to clients. This is where you should start. I think at the very beginning, if you're getting this going, like cover your bases at the bottom of the funnel and figure out how to reverse engineer your way into those answers. I think that's the best way to do it. All right, takeaway 4. You do need to develop some sort of an offsite SEO strategy for acquiring relevant co-mentions. This is not an easy thing for just SEO teams to do in a vacuum. In fact, I don't even think they can do it in a vacuum. To build credibility on YouTube and LinkedIn and Gartner and G2 and third parties, I mean, it requires a lot of coordination. You probably need to work with customer support teams, customer service teams to figure out the review stuff, right? Then YouTube could be an entirely other team, or it could be the SEO team if they have resources to do it. Affiliates can be the SEO team, but usually it's a different team, right? So there's just got to be a lot of coordination happening across all these channels to make it work. And you got to start thinking in terms of category coverage, not just like blog posts, or media coverage, not just blog posts, right? Because it can be any kind of type of media now that gets you the visibility. And then I think the last one here is like the expectations around measurement and forecasting. You have to acknowledge the dark SEO funnel. You have to acknowledge that AI referrals are probably way underreported. You got to try and get self-reported attribution going so you can maybe close some of those gaps. You really need to be more directional in terms of what's our overall visibility and how we're showing up in these categories, instead of just rigid, here's what's happening with traffic, because I think you're going to be disappointed if you do that. All right, so that brings us to the end, and I'll stop sharing. I seen a lot of stuff going on in the chat there in the comments, so we can finally stop and like go crazy into all this because I see a lot of chatter.
Lots of chatter. No,
Yeah,
great stuff. Great stuff. You
so
definitely got my brain humming along with all kinds of different ideas. I have a couple of questions just to kick things off. I think one of the key themes that I've heard you talk over and over again is around the cannibalization of traffic, more specifically with reference to top of funnel keywords and queries. All of that makes a ton of sense because AI overviews are very good at answering those specific queries for users. My question deals with the topical authority component of SEO and AI visibility. So, in a world where we are shifting towards AI giving direct answers, obviously top of funnel traffic becoming close to zero, do you think it's still relevant and important to create content for those queries for the co-mention topical authority component? Or is your current playbook to say, let's not mess with those pages. Let's focus on, middle of funnel or bottom of funnel. So how do you think about top of funnel in relation to boosting topical authority within the models?
yeah, that's a great question, dude. So let me just start off and say that I do think top of funnel is still relevant because of a few factors. First of all, you need internal links moving and grooving throughout the site. So if you don't have those, internal link hubs and destinations for links, even acquiring backlinks, because I do think links will have a resurgence. Like in the doomsday scenario we always talk about, where it's AI mode full takeover, and there's no more Google CTR engagement to determine what people like and what they don't like in terms of back clicking and pogo sticking and checking out this result, right? It's all going to really be a different equation. So we have to infer that what's going to make up for that engagement loss, it's likely to be links and topical authority, right? So that seems to be where things are going. Now, the reason why I've been having so much success with clients is because in the overwhelming majority of cases, the content teams just gravitate to this stuff, right? So every project that I've inherited or taken over, they've already got tons of top of funnel cooking. What they always falter on is the bottom of funnel stuff. I always rarely see bottom of funnel, high quality BOFU or even, middle of funnel stuff being created. I just see content teams going on a tangent, right? Just ripping away on top of funnel. And I think the reason it happens is because it's the most obvious choices. They have the most amount of volume. Every other competitor has already done those topics and pages. So it's a really easy formula for SEO teams to copy and just go do. It doesn't require too much thought, right? It's just, yeah, these topics are so obvious. Let's assign them to a writer and get them done. That's what I've observed. That most of this has already been covered by teams, and the gaps are all the hard to think about, hard to find stuff. Um, and so that's why I always prioritize and lead with that. I know it's kind of part of my whole sort of like philosophy on SEO that tofu's mattering less because of all the AI overview sabotage that's happening, but it still matters. It's just that so many content teams just always over index on this that I always over index on the opposite to balance it out.
Fair, fair, fair. So then put in another way, I'm trying to systematize, this. You would say, let's focus on the bottom of funnel type content gaps that are missing within the ecosystem, and then build up from there until it starts to make sense for you to pursue top of funnel. So,
That's right.
the first, say, 10, 20 articles that you're creating to make your brand more closely associated with the topic, you're saying go bottom of funnel, go long tail. And
That's
then
right.
once that starts to produce traffic leads, revenue, then slowly level it up from there.
That's right. That's right. And I actually went down this like deep thought experiment with Ross from Siege Media. We said, all right, what if all top of funnel eventually just becomes YouTube and social media? Which is a decent argument, right? That's one that I'm always kind of thinking about too. Like every company is automatically doing top of funnel because they're doing social media marketing, they're doing events, they're doing tofu in other ways, right? So tofu automatically happens through other channels just because that's how it goes. What there's a lot less of that's happening is like bofu intent marketing. Maybe there's PPC happening. You got to spend money for that, but I can't. Maybe direct sales, right? Out cold outbound, but you can argue even that's a form of top of funnel advertising, depending on the familiarity level of the prospect. But what other bofu is happening at a company than PPC and affiliate? Like I can't think of any bofu marketing that's happening. And so now you have LLM preference content, which we know is bofu, which we know is comparison content, product pages, solutions pages, features pages, um, X versus Y, X best. Like we know that's LLM preference content. So if you really want to get your boss or a CMO really juiced up on this, what's our AEO strategy? You could just very simply say it's bofu SEO, right? Like that could be one way to just like get them bought in. Given that's the stuff that LLM
Yeah.
preferences
Totally,
prefers.
totally. All
Yeah,
right, I got one more question, and then we'll get into all these audience questions. You
yeah,
talked about this concept of third-party co-mentions, which
yeah,
sounds similar to what traditional backlinks may have been. So,
yeah.
first question is, what is the difference between what third-party co-mentions are and traditional backlinks? That's question number one. And
Yeah,
then just know that I have a follow-up question, which is to say that a lot of these different sites that you cited, if you will, like the YouTubes, the G2, the Capterra, so on and so forth, right? Some of those channels are owned channels, right? Like
yeah,
Clearscope has a YouTube channel, Clearscope has a
yeah.
LinkedIn page, we have an X account, right? So do you think that in the world of third-party co-mentions, and this is the follow-up,
Mhm.
is there different weights that are going to be associated with different sites, say YouTube versus, like a Capterra versus like an independent publisher, like Gaetano's marketing advice
Yeah.
blog, right? Like how do those get weighted differently and in AI, and is that different than traditional like
Yeah,
SEO?
yeah. Yeah, so I'm not like a scientist or anything. I don't have any insider info, but I'll just give you my view on how this works. If you think about what was the highest value backlinks you could have gotten and what were the worst types of backlinks you could have gotten, the worst were obviously things that you could easily spam or pay for, or just inject on your own, such as like, comment links on blogs, which are all spam, directory links we could just buy, low quality editorial links from news farm sites where, every page has like 30 outgoing anchors to different commercial, you know, texts like best VPNs and, stuff like that. Casino, online poker, right? Like, yeah. So those were the worst. And I feel that and I know that the best were the things that were hard to come by. So like that was a real guest post written by a real person with a real thought, where a natural occurring backlink went in there. Or if like I have a client that does employee monitoring software, and the Wall Street Journal mentioned a link to my client, um, just through natural luck, because there was a hot topic during COVID of remote employees getting spied on, right? So obviously that's like those are the best kinds of links, and I think that the mentions are following the same sort of path, where if you first of all, I think there's narrative. Your brand narrative needs to kind of be consistent or systematized, like across all these places. So like what it says about the brand in the social profile, the G2 profile, the Gartner profile, and even like bios and stuff like that. All that needs to be like consistent if you want to start building those co-mentions. But I still kind of feel that it applies the same way it does backlinks. You need to get like natural, good quality mentions. I mean, I suppose it could be gamed to an extent, but I think it would be harder to do.
Got it. Okay. And then, so well, the follow-up question is that we've been talking a lot about mentions, right? And
Yeah,
so I think there's a world where, we update our Capterra or our G2 or our Google My Business. And what we're
yeah.
doing is we're stuffing these profiles or these bios, if you will, with the correct entities that we want associated with our brand. So would you say a key difference between AI visibility optimization and SEO is that AI visibility is more around the mention and the word cloud surrounding, the brand rather than the link? Or do you think that the link is still important?
Yeah, I mean, what based on what I've been reading from all the experts out there, they're saying that the word cloud, right? Like what gets said before and after your brand in the same line or two, like that gets taken into account. And that the mentions could just influence the training data as it re-indexes what it says about brands. So the mentions could technically be enough to at least get you the mention in the LLM when it's it's building that association, right? So Clearscope being the example I talked about in the slides, like if you want to come up for AI visibility platform, I guess you need to build links, but you also need to build the mention, the co-mention. So I think in a perfect world you would ideally need both, but I suppose you could just get the mentions up, and then that would at least get you into the training data.
Yep, perfect.
That's what it seems like.
That does that does seem like
Yeah.
what is going on, but again, fast moving
Yeah.
landscape,
I mean,
I'm sure the
it's
weights will
harder.
change.
It's always harder to get the backlinks too, especially if you're working with a PR team. Like I can't tell you how many companies I worked with that had big PR firms, like getting them massive like mentions in like a big tier 1 publication, and then you say, "Hey, can you also get them to link to the homepage?" And it's like, "Oh, we can't do that." Like, well, can you try? No, it's gonna piss off the editors. Like, all right, well, good luck. Yeah. So it just you don't really. I don't know. It's harder to get the links.
Harder to get the links for
Yeah.
sure. All right, well, let's jump into some audience questions. I will start off with, I think, a fairly easy one. Brooke asks, how does gated content play into AEO, GEO?
Oh, it becomes completely irrelevant. Unfortunately, yeah. Well, I don't know actually, because I will say this. Very surprisingly, I'm working with a enterprise B2B SaaS company that has a lot of gated content, and I mean a ton. And I've been looking at where conversions from AI platforms are going on this particular site, and a lot of them are going to the content downloads, like more than 70, 80%. So that actually goes to another interesting point about the AI chat leads. If AI chat leads are sending users to gated content downloads, that automatically makes the value of an AI chat lead even worse than Google. It makes it even worse. But I mean, but it just defeats the point of content now. Like if it's gated, it has no chance of getting cited, or well, I mean, I guess it does have a chance of getting cited if people are going there. It has no chance of getting the content surfaced in an answer, right? Like that. So you're better off just like, I don't know. The other problem with gated content is the distribution is your burden. How are you going to get people to that content, and how are you going to get them to download it? That has to be actively promoted with outgoing marketing. So if you're not willing to do that, or if you can't do that, then there's no point of having gated content. It won't get distributed. It won't work. So it's all about getting people to download it through promotion, which is hard.
Hard, yeah, gated content. The traditional model of lead magnet, squeeze page, drive traffic, I think is wearing down pretty hard, and AI not being able to read that, I'm sure does not
Yeah,
help.
that whole model got beat up like pretty badly.
Yeah. All right. Patrick asks something about what you were saying earlier around communication. What is the easy to follow narrative you suggest that I can communicate to my early stage digital health clients, most of whom don't understand SEO and now have to factor in AEO, GEO? It was easy to show progress when we could point to traffic and engagement. What can we measure to demonstrate progress?
Yeah. Well, I had a lot of this in my slides. One challenge with this is you to show that revenue and pipeline numbers have increased from the organic channel, you need to be working with that client for a while, right? So you won't be if you're just starting to work with a new client, you're not going to have that run. It's like investing, right? Like you can't put 10 G's into a stock and think it's going to become 100 G's in a month, right? It takes a while for it to marinate and grow. And so if you're not working with a client for a while, you're not going to have that result to show. So you're going to have to rely on the leading indicator side. So in that case, if you're not able to show traffic, what you're going to have to lean on the most is organic ranking positions, because the LLMs don't actually retrieve information on their own. They just scrape Google rankings and Bing rankings. Like if you look at Perplexity's citation order when it gives the AI summary, it almost mirrors Google search rankings exactly. And then I've noticed less of an overlap with ChatGPT and Bing, although it's I think it's confirmed now that Bing search is powering ChatGPT. Um, so you need to lean on the leading indicators, whereas organic ranking positions in the top 10, because that's where LLMs are going to scrape your pages and content. And then it's the LLM answers, right? How often is the brand getting recommended through bottom of funnel prompts in LLM platforms and so forth? But actually, the bigger answer is that you shouldn't work with a client that's this against everything. You shouldn't work with a client that's requiring you to jump through so many hoops that you have to prove every little thing along the way. Like if I ever meet a prospect now that's giving me all this pushback, I just tell them in the first call, hey, look, I just want to work with clients who believe in this, who are ready to invest, who are ready to rock and roll. Like we don't have time to do all this back and forth where I have to convince you of everything and I have to prove every little point that I need to make. And everything has to get so overly bought in. Like I just don't work with companies like that anymore. Like it sounds like for Patrick, you probably will need to dump this company sooner rather than later. That's I mean, without talking to you and knowing enough, that's what it seems like. But yeah, I think the bigger point is that you don't need to work with these companies who are so averse and are so skeptical, right? Like you need to work with winners who want to move fast and swing, right? Like that's what it's about.
That's what it's about. Love it. Love the whole reframe of the entire discussion. Just pick good clients. All right,
Yeah.
we have 5 minutes left, so let's go into more of a rapid fire mode. And I'm just gonna ask you, the rest of these questions, maybe two, three sentences on your thoughts. So
All right.
some stuff moving now more into tooling. Gaetano Ekta asks, Gaetano would like to know your thoughts around attribution when it comes to LLMs. Is it just using the tools like Peak, Profound, Scrunch, etc.?
Yeah, exactly. I just use Scrunch AI, and that's the best you're gonna get. I mean, um, let me just see if I can summarize this in one slide. I think I had one good slide that had this. Yeah. Yeah, I actually might have just one good slide on this. Let me pull it up and show him. Um yeah. So there's some stuff here that's pretty good. All right. So I have some SEO measurement principles in the AI era. It's visibility beyond just organic traffic. Prioritize BOFU, like I said. Brand search as a signal, I think, is something to factor in. So ideally, there should be increased traffic to the homepage, as an example, as a positive SEO indicator. And ideally, there would be rising brand demand as well. Back to the don't panic over traffic point. I think that's been well stated. And then just isolate the tofu irrelevance. The top of funnel getting wiped out is a way to counter that narrative. And then he was specifically asking about the attribution. So I'll just skip to one slide where I just have you can break this down to a client in a very basic way, and they should get it. There's only three places where AI platforms source information. It's your main website messaging, the LLM preferred content on site, and then the third party vendors and review sites. So if you want to manipulate the training data, you need to work these three areas. And then the three main ways to actually get attributable traffic is classic search, the 10 blue links, the actual clicks from the AI platform. So that's AI referral traffic, and then the zero click stuff in the AI recommendation. That's all there is. So you just use the different tools at your disposal, such as Scrunch AI, Google Search Console. To get actual organic channel performance, though, you need your client to go into their CRM and get closed loss, pipeline, qualified deals, qualified opportunity, conversion rate. All that stuff is in like their HubSpot data or their Salesforce data. So you need them to go and assign that to like their RevOps team and go source it out. Or if they give you access to the CRM, you need to go and do that yourself. But yeah, you need to be able to look at everything.
Got it. A couple more. I'm clarifying one of them right now, but the third to last question, would you ignore Reddit and instead double down on third-party mentions to maximize ROI? Asks Daniel.
Yeah, I definitely would. I definitely would. I think Reddit is one of just those natural things that happens when you have good customer support, a good product, and a big enough brand, and people just start talking about your brand naturally through Reddit. I wrote a whole post on this that you can check out on my Substack. I just put a link there. Um, that kind of goes deeper into my thoughts on Reddit. But I think it's in general, it's a very tough channel to game, and it just needs a different approach. So yes, I would say if you're like just focusing on SEO, it's one of like the hardest to influence, highest amount of work, hardest to track, lowest ROI things.
All right. I'm gonna ask this one. I'm not sure exactly what they mean, but Tarek asks, thoughts on all the AI search platforms coming out right now. Do you think they have a role on an in-house SEO team? I'm assuming that what that means is that, they're going with some sort of an enterprise provider and then they're looking at the services that they're offering. But yeah, what are your thoughts about hiring, I guess, like an AEO specialist as part of a content or growth marketing team?
I just don't know what that person would be doing. Is it a content engineer? Is it a person that is just like owning reporting, which it doesn't really take that long? What are the specific responsibilities of that person? Um,
Yeah, I guess
Compared,
Tarek is
yeah,
clarifying to say that the SaaS platform is likely the one providing this person as a value add to their offering.
yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, so working with a dark SEO funnel. I mean, there's not too much you can do to bridge that gap in terms of illuminating the dark SEO funnel, right? Like other than self-reported attribution, I don't know how you would do it. So it's kind of a tough one, but I mean, yeah, probably there's going to be a head of AEO, head of GEO, right? The way I always think about it is, input metrics. What are you doing? How much content is being updated, refreshed, plus net new, right? I guess you could look at things like, how is content being outwardly promoted so that you can get the co-occurrences happening, right? But that's tough. I mean, I just don't know. I haven't seen the role effectively done. Like I haven't seen it or heard about it to the extent that it's been successful. Here's what's so different about traditional SEO. I mean, anything to close tracking gaps. I mean, yeah, good luck. I don't really know how do you do that in a dark SEO world. So
All right, last question. Taran asks, do you think the Knicks have a real shot at the championships this year?
nah, nah, not good enough, unfortunately. You got to be realistic.
Gotta be realistic. All right,
Yeah.
well, heading into 2026, one final thought that you want to leave the audience and whoever watches this recording with.
Yeah, I do have just one final thought, and it's to stick to your guns on the traffic is not correlated with revenue narrative. And don't let traffic going down be the thing that causes so much bearishness or like panic or just negativity on SEO. Like you have to get around that. You have to get around traffic is flat or going down. And what are the other ways that SEO is working outside of just pure clicks, right? So that's the most important thing.
Well, thank you so much, Gaetano. This was a blast. Looking at the chat, lots of people saying this is the best discussion that they've ever heard on the subject to date. So awesome job here. And can't wait to have you back on another one of these webinars.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you.
See y'all.